Committee will come to order. At this time, I'd like to take and bring up House Bill 4881 and 4882 for a vote to move on to rules. At this time, Rep. Plavlo moves to refer House Bill 4881 to House Committee Rules. Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Chair Neyer.
Yes.
Representative Warts. Leitner.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes.
Coons.
Yes.
Pavlo.
Yes.
Pies.
Yes.
Diefendorf.
Yes.
Rangens.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
House Bill 4881 then is reported with recommendations and referred to rules. Now we'll take up House Bill 4882. At this time, Representative Skaggs moves to vote out House Bill 4882 to Rules Committee. Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Chair Neyer.
Yes.
Representative Warts. Leitner.
Yes.
Alexander.
Yes.
Fox.
Yes, ma'am.
Coons.
Yes.
Pavlo.
Yes.
Pies.
Yes.
Diefendorf.
Yes.
Rangens.
Yes.
Skaggs.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 10 yeas, 0 nays, 0 pass. The motion prevails.
House Bill 4882 will be reported out of to the House Rules Committee. I'll also read in 2 cards in support of that. Not wishing to speak, but in support of this bill, Jarrett Scoops from Mackinac Center, and also not wishing to speak, but in support of the bill, Tim Golding and Sonny Koch from Americans for Prosperity, Michigan. At this time, I'd like to bring up our folks from Michigan Agri-Business Association, Chuck and Scott. Would you please take the floor? They'll be giving us a brief presentation of what this group does in support of agriculture in Michigan.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to speak with you a little bit about the Michigan Agri-Business Association. I'm Chuck Lipstrew. I am president of the association. Our organization is based in Lansing, and I'm joined today by Scott Gordon, president and CEO of Cooperative Elevator Company in Michigan's thumb and working across America. Scott will have a chance to tell you a little bit about his farmer-owned cooperative that he leads, and we can fit that into the broader context of our association. And before I begin, I want to say thank you to every member of this committee. I think we have all had an opportunity to work with one another now and again on different topics, and we appreciate your thoughtful leadership. A little bit about the association. We've been around since 1903. We have 300 business members statewide and around the region and around the country. These members are comprise every segment of the industry. We'll talk about that in a second. But from our association's perspective, we get involved down here in Lansing, helping educate you all and staff and stakeholders about the industry. We also host a number of events, networking events, and trainings for our members. In front of you, you have an invitation for one of our monthly networking breakfasts we host in Lansing almost every month. We've got one next Wednesday over at the DoubleTree, and several of you have had a chance to attend. We always welcome having you as guests at our breakfasts. But who are our members? So here are some key segments that comprise our 300 business members. And you can think of us as a chamber of commerce. sort of organization. Individual farmers are going to be members of the general farm organizations or their grower groups, are members of the businesses working together with farmers before, during, and after the growing season to help them be successful. A few of those membership segments: ag retail. Agricultural retailers are businesses dotted around rural Michigan that are the providers of all the different things farmers need during the growing season: seed, fertilizer, chemistry, technology, expert advice provided by people like Michigan's certified crop advisors, trained professionals that work hand in glove with farmers to help them make good in-field decisions and maximize their return on investment and farm economics. Grain handlers, these are grain elevators and feed mills, animal nutrition businesses that are buying grain from Michigan farmers and either finding end-user markets for that product around America, around the world, or creating animal nutrition products, animal feed, to support Michigan's livestock industry. Input manufacturers, what I mean by that are the sort of the first level manufacturers of seed, fertilizer, chemistry, crop protection products, all the things that are moving through the ag retail chain to the farmer to help them grow crops. Logistics is a pretty big bucket for us. We represent trucking interests, anybody hauling agricultural products. I want to be clear, the trucking industry is so important for us in rural Michigan, not just agriculture, but all the different businesses that are out there in small towns. Without truckers, without trucking, we would have a really tough time and in many cases couldn't do the work that we do. We also work closely with Michigan short-line railroads, who play a really important logistical connection, especially as we get up into northern Michigan, up into the thumb. And we represent professional services, CPAs, attorneys, any business that you might work with as a farmer or an agribusiness to be successful. I would note, before we get into a couple issues, 3 issues that we're tracking right now, because of the scope of that membership and the different segments of the industry that are part of our association, we do get involved in a whole lot of different issues, and I think you all have experienced that in recent years. We can always be a resource or get you to a resource on almost any agricultural or rural economic issue. But I want to talk to you about 3 issues we're tracking among many right now. The first is just the overall agricultural economy. I think everybody on this committee has seen some of the headlines around the uncertainty pervading the ag economy right now, and it is real. Things are uncertain for farmers and rural businesses. The fortunes of farmers and rural businesses tend to rise and fall together. So when there's strong balance sheets in the countryside, when farmers are having an easier time, that then flows through the economy to ag retail, to grain elevators, to trucking companies, to all those other rural businesses. And so we do have some concern as we look to 2026 and beyond. There's a lot of uncertainty out there. It doesn't mean that everyone is in crisis, but it does mean times are a little tougher. Commodity prices are down. That's fairly well publicized. There's uncertainty with regard to export markets that's still playing out even this week, and we expect that that uncertainty will continue. And labor continues to be a challenge across different facets of the industry, especially our West Michigan specialty crop growers, who have struggled and continue to struggle with labor costs and availability. I include on our slides a chart from the Farm Journal that surveys leading ag economists every month. And the most recent, you can see the numbers, of course, but the most recent numbers suggest that ag economists believe we are worse off as an agricultural economy writ large than we were a year ago. And many of those same economists say that over the next year, things will likely stay the same or maybe even become more difficult. And that's playing out across the countryside. I do want to emphasize it's a complex equation, so I don't want to leave you with the impression that everyone in agriculture is in economic crisis right now. Land values are holding. In some cases, land values have increased. Our livestock producers are having maybe an easier time economically right now than crop farmers. But if we leave you with one thing on the ag economy, it's to keep in mind that everything happening here in Lansing, whether it's at MDARD or Eagle or here in the legislature, those impacts are outsized during an uncertain economic time. And happy to answer questions about the ag economy a little later. Second, I want to make the point that exports are incredibly important for our state. We reached a record export number over the past year, and as Scott will mention here in a second, the co-op elevator is a great export success story for the state of Michigan. We send around $3 billion worth of products around the world every year, many of them coming out of our smallest towns and rural areas. One great example of many is Michigan's dry bean industry. Dry beans are a leading crop up in the Thumb and Saginaw Valley, and Michigan is well known both for its high quality of dry beans and our ability, our logistics, thanks to those truckers and railroads, to get product moved in a timely fashion. And we'll let Scott talk more about exports, but I do want to thank members of the committee and legislators for fully funding the MDARD export inspection programs as part of the FY26 budget. That's incredibly important and supports something the state government can do to support our export footprint. And last but not least, I want to be sure everybody knows and extend an invite to everyone here to come see some of the incredible technology in play in agriculture. I've been doing this work for around 20 years, and when I started in agriculture, we were talking about GPS steered equipment, precision agriculture, really impressive stuff. We still talk about that today, but we're in the brave new world now of aerial imaging, leveraging AI to give farmers better insights, working together with their ag retailer and their CCAs. Using drones more than ever to help them sustainably produce crops using the same amounts of land, or in some cases less land, using the same or fewer amounts of inputs, and making sure we're safeguarding water quality and soil health. And I have to take a moment to say that chart down there at the bottom, that's actually a couple years old, so if you zoomed in, you might see some brands that have come and gone, but that is a look from an outfit called Ag Funder that tracks investment into new ag technology and new market entrants. And you can just see the huge number of new technologies, new market entrants, just new ideas that are out there in the industry. And those of you who farm or in agriculture have lived this. Those of us who are lucky enough to work in the industry have seen the incredible, innovative, entrepreneurial spirit of Michigan farmers and those in the rural business sector. So we're excited about this. The main thing that you'll hear us talk about down here, and we've met with many of you on this over time, as crop input products like chemistry are available for farmers and help them to make sure they're sustainably growing more crops and safeguarding against pests and disease. We have a regulatory system that is that's highly structured and works. It's science-based, and we want to leave it that way. And we are strong supporters of making sure our state remains a strong regulatory environment for the use of things like pesticides. And I want to thank the committee and thank all Michigan legislators for getting a budget done that fully funds the pesticide and plant pest management function at MDARD. These are the inspectors that are making sure pesticide products are properly registered in our state, following an EPA review of them, following the science, and then when they're used in the field, making sure that they're done according to label standards, they're done in compliance with the law and safely. That's very important to us. It was our number one, as Mr. Chairman, as you know, our number one priority here over the last few months was to be sure we fully support those folks. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Scott Gordon, President and CEO of Cooperative Elevator, up in the thumb.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. As Chuck mentioned, my name is Scott Gordon. I'm the CEO and President of the Cooperative Elevator Company. We're a farmer-owned cooperative headquartered in Pigeon, Michigan. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to talk a little bit more about our business. The Cooperative Elevator Company's been in business for over 100 years. We were founded in 1915. Today we remain very rooted in our grower members that are located across the thumb of Michigan. And we've since added in the 100 years a number of other business ventures outside of the state of Michigan, as well as North Dakota, Washington, and Manitoba, as we look to grow our business and bring value back to our members here in the thumb. As you can see by this map, our locations here in Michigan are sort of scattered around strategically around the thumb of Michigan. We're a full-service cooperative that encompasses many of the industry segments that Chuck's mentioned. We supply farmers with everything from seed to fertilizer to crop protection products, fuel, and many other things that are required in order for growers to get their crop planted and get it harvested successfully. We provide agronomy services that help farmers each year, leveraging the technology that's available to them. We buy and market grain and dry beans and handle sales and logistics to help move those Michigan crops efficiently to end-use customers. As told, we support more than 1,100 family-owned operations that connect their operations, and we connect their operations to buyers across North America and around the world. These same farmers are also the owners of our cooperative, and we deeply value the cooperative system. It provides a collaborative, input-driven approach that seeks to drive value back to the farm gate. The work our cooperative does reflects the diversity of Michigan and the thumb of agriculture. For example, we process and market corn, wheat, soybeans, both conventional and organic, and we also process and market multiple classes of dry edible beans, which is a major platform for us here in Michigan. Those crops move through our plants onto rail, truck, and container channels to key markets across the United States, as well as Mexico, Canada, Europe, and beyond. From an agronomy perspective, we also support growers of other crops important to thumb, like pickles and sugar beets. I'd like the members of the committee to know how proud of the thumb how proud we are of the Thumb farmers and the crops that we grow and enjoy across Michigan, the U.S., and globally. We don't do a great job of telling our story to put some of those in perspective and maybe make it a little more relatable. As an example, as I'll talk about here with our export business, we export around 400 rail cars to Mexico a year. We have a brand in Mexico that helps feed a country that 30% live under the poverty line, so this is a very important crop for Mexico, and all those Michigan's beans making their way down to Mexico provides a very important role. If you eat the brand Triscuits, those are all Michigan-grown wheat. The Triscuits that you buy in the store in California or any state across the country, all of that wheat is produced here in the Thumb of Michigan to support that brand. If you're having a burrito at Chipotle or a burrito at Qdoba, those are Michigan-grown beans. I like to take that top opportunity to tell folks that because it's a lot more relatable than people think when we have customers come to visit us, or folks, or even farmers that don't necessarily know where their crops go. It's really important that we make those connections. We play a vital role in those brands that are sold nationally. We're very honored by this award that Chuck had mentioned, just because, again, it tells the stories of thousands of farmers and families and employees who make these global sales possible. I'd also like to express and appreciate the on-the-ground MDARD staff who help facilitate export shipments. As Chuck mentioned, there's a number of folks that make this possible, a lot of steps in the process of getting things exported that they support. Results like these are especially important as farmers and rural businesses navigate the economy that Chuck talked about. There's also no doubt our industry has experienced substantial pressure with many unknowns into 2026. Our cooperative is more laser focused than ever to identify and deliver value back to the farmer, because as we know, that's where it all starts. We know that the success of our business is predicated on the success of the farmer first and foremost. We can't lose sight of that. I believe the diversity of agriculture in Michigan and in the Thumb will be an overall positive as difficult economic conditions persist here. I do want to thank legislation for continuing to invest in the critical state of Michigan and the services that they facilitate and provide for us, as Chuck mentioned. As we continue in uncertain economic circumstances, I hope you'll remain focused and consult with your trade associations, the Lake MABA, and Michigan farm groups to carefully evaluate how policy change could affect the grower owners. And then finally today, I sincerely would like to extend an invitation to any of you or your staff to visit our headquarters in Pigeon. We love to tell our story. We love to share insight into our operations and truly what we're doing up in the Thumb, and we're proud to facilitate a tour or a phone call to talk more about the things that we do. With that said, on behalf of our 1,100 plus family farms and farmers, employees, we want to thank you for supporting Michigan agriculture and appreciate the time that you've taken here this morning to listen to me, and we look forward to any questions you might have.
Thank you, gentlemen. With that, we'll move on to questions. Representative Pies?
Thank you. I'll start first, and I'm going to have to head out for another meeting right after I ask this. I was at an agriculture conference in September, and I was talking to a soybean grower from Louisiana or Mississippi, and we got onto the conversation of insurance and silo bankruptcies. And so I'm wondering how this is, I'm not sure that this is a question for you or for you, but I'm wondering how we're handling that here and how it's affecting y'all right now.
Yeah, Vice Chair, that's a good question. I think, I'll do my best to answer it. I think what likely we were talking about is one of two things. The first is the ability for grain storage, like grain silos, to be insured, like physically insured against things like fire and loss. That has been, and that may or may not have been the item that the grower was raising, but that actually has been a challenge over time, as anybody that works with the grain elevators knows that it has been more difficult to insure those facilities, and I think a lot of larger manufacturing facilities over time. The other thing that they may have been referencing is insurance against the potential for example, if a grain elevator or a grain trader goes bankrupt, and that could be it. So in Michigan, we have a very sound system to make sure we hedge against that, called the Farm Produce Insurance Authority. It's an organization, it's a board whose members are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate. Our industry is represented by Jim Howe at Star of the West Milling Company, the CEO there. And then there are different grower groups that are represented on there as well. In the unfortunate circumstance that we were to have an elevator bankruptcy, which would have substantial impacts on growers and the industry, that Farm Produce Insurance Authority is administered by MDARD. It has a fund to be able to step in. Now, luckily, we have not seen that circumstance in Michigan, and they keep very close tabs on things. It's something we feel we have a very strong system in place to safeguard against.
Representative Reinigetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Gordon, for being here. I was looking through the slides as you were talking, seeing that there's been some hit on our exports. Given the urgent surge need in food in Michigan, is there a way to redirect past planned exports to Michigan's food banks to help solve the impending food crisis in the next month?
Go ahead. I'm happy to give some broader context as well.
I'm not sure as it relates to the amount of volume on whether there's a lot of areas that we can divert to, but I think specifically, I mean, we do, there's a lot of government programs that come out that we support as it relates to dry beans and packaged goods.
Yeah, of course.
Help me with the...
Yeah, I'm happy to weigh in. I think the question is, of course, with the SNAP situation over the weekend, very serious. And I just want to be very clear for committee members, we want to see the government reopened as soon as possible for a wide range of reasons. On the SNAP program, something that I think is very important to share is for rural America, this is an important program. 1 in 7 rural households, rural small town households are SNAP recipients. And then support the rural economy in that way, and especially rural grocery stores. And to come back to your question, right now, so the co-op elevator, as Scott mentioned, exports a lot of beans to Mexico, for example. That USMCA, the North American Trade Partnership, remains in place. And so those exports are still able to move, and it's important to meet those partnerships. I think to your point, though, on SNAP, that's a serious concern, and beyond that, getting the government reopened is something our members want to see.
Thank you.
Thanks, Representative.
Representative Pavlo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chuck and Gordon, for your testimonies this morning. I have 2 questions, actually. Number 1 deals with small farms in Michigan. What's the condition of them, and is there a future for small farms?
I'll start, and then maybe if Scott wants to weigh in, yes, there's a future for small farms, absolutely. In fact, one of the things that our current MDARD director, Tim Boring, has really focused on, and we applaud him for that, is to think about making sure we're supporting diverse production in our state and making sure we're supporting farms of all sizes. Large farms play a critical role in American agriculture and ensure that there's a stable, predictable supply of commodities and food. Small farms also play a really important role across basically every segment. And there's ways that marketing of products from small farms has changed over time. I think there are ways that we can be thoughtful about how we invest in farms of all sizes and make sure that programs work for farms of all sizes. It's important for agriculture to have a diversity of production, and that's something we think that MDARD has really done a great job of thinking through over time. And I think, Scott, maybe you could talk to, you have 1,100 farm families that are members of the cooperative, and they're not all the same size, and maybe you could speak to some of the differences there.
Yeah, I talked about the strength of the cooperative model, and our tagline, which isn't on our logo here, but it is on most of our logos, is in unity there's strength. And what that means really is that, you know, despite the fact of a large farm versus a small farm together, we can, you know, leverage our power together to drive down cost and market the end-use crop effectively. We're finding that there are challenges for smaller farmers, for sure. But again, participating in the cooperative model helps. We've added, 6 years ago, we got into organics, which really presents a number of different opportunities for smaller farmers who, from a scale perspective, is a nicer fit. But absolutely, I mean, there's lots of room for small farms within our cooperative model. We're looking for ways to make sure they remain relevant with specialty crops and those types of things. But I don't want to not mention that there are some challenges with small farms, but they're certainly not going away.
Thank you. Second question, what's the future of organic farming in Michigan?
Okay.
Go ahead, Scott. I'll build on, but Scott,
yeah,
maybe you could.
Well, look, I mean, we're looking at it in two components. There are some challenges as tight times in the economy, the way it is, that consumers are just making choices, based on price and can't afford the organic options in the marketplace. So that's meaning that some of those premium products that are on the shelf that we had supported in the past are showing some decline, in which represents decline in the inputs that we provide. Having said that, there continues to be a lot of demand for organic inputs that support protein, so feed. So we're sort of pivoting away from some of these specialty type crops that were going into end-use products and moving more towards feed to support things like dairy, poultry, and those types of things.
Okay.
But there's a lot of pressure, obviously. Consumers are making different decisions based on the price and the way things are out on.
Thank you.
Representative Fox.
Thank you very much, and I have 1.5 questions. My half question is, I heard you mention something about poverty line in Mexico. Now, what is that, and is it the same as we deal with in the U.S.? It's, did they look at poverty the same way we do in the U.S. and measure it by the same numbers?
Happy to jump in there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Helpful. I don't know that the two governments draw the same lines, right? But one of the things that we're really proud of, that Scott alluded to, and it's not just Mexico, there's other nations that import Michigan-grown products as well, that they need imports. They are import reliant to feed their people. It's one of the things that's so important for us as a nation is we're able to grow food that people around the world need. And it's something that I think we've talked about with many of you over time is the need to make sure we maintain food production here at home as even a national security issue. But to your question on the need to meet food security needs in some developing nations and also with some of our North American trading partners like Mexico, there's, as Scott mentioned, there are a lot of people to feed, and production is not always enough there to get it done, which is why Mexico is such a great partner for us in terms of black beans and other classes of dry bean.
Right. Then my full question is, I saw that we seem to be losing against Brazil, and that the market in China seems to be going downhill in relation to China. What, a high view look, what can we do as a state and as a nation to step toward winning that battle and, toward increasing our market? Is this all tariff-based, or what is your analysis of that?
Well, I might give a couple high-level thoughts, and I'd like to ask Scott to weigh in as well, given the co-op's footprint in the grain trade. Overall, the China market is incredibly important. Especially for soybean growers, and you all have probably seen the concerns raised by the soybean industry in particular and U.S. agriculture that we need that China market. It has been a positive step in the last 24 to 48 hours that China's booked at least 3 cargoes of soybeans for the first time this year. That's a positive step in the right direction. I would also separate that out of the China question, which is a very important one for us, and we do want to see that China market. We want certainty in it. We want open and fair trade with China. Brazil production is a separate but related issue. Brazil is producing more crops than other South American nations. Argentina, production has increased. One thing that we are very proud of in Michigan that you all have played a role in over the years is our logistics capacity to move what we grow. Even as other countries ramp up their production, which is a real competitor. It's a good question, Representative, because it's something that's concerning for us as a U.S. industry. We're still able to move those products in a timely fashion. We're able to get our export certifications in a timely fashion. And customers around the world still know Michigan as the guys that can get it done. And that's one way we can compete as other countries ramp up their own, their capacity and their production. I do want to turn to Scott, though. Scott, you all are involved in the grain business.
Yeah, I think the two things I would add is that Brazil's been at increasing their production for some time, well before concerns over tariff were on the horizon or in the current state that we're in. So, Brazil and South America as a whole has been increasing their production quite quickly over the last number of years. And then the second point is really to support, again, what Chuck said, is that yes, but just more relies on the importance of keeping the export ability on track for us here. I can't say enough about how important it is for us to enter these markets in a quick manner, and having the the services that MDARD, as an example, provide in order for us to get to those markets quickly is really, really important. It couldn't be any more important now, as you mentioned, with the competitiveness of markets like Brazil and other areas in South America.
Okay, thank you very much.
Representative Skaggs.
Thank you, Chair. I think Rep. Fox asked the question that I wanted to ask, but let me just say thank you, Mr. Gordon, for coming in. And Chuck, it's great to see you. Always great to have a constituent from the mighty 80th House District here at the Ag Committee, other than myself. Obviously these ag economists monitor numbers on page 4 of the deck that we got is extraordinarily troubling. 100% say Brazil is the current winner of the latest trade war. 88% say that the China trade volumes won't return to pre-trade war levels. You've answered a little bit about this question about what is to be done around infrastructure. It's certainly heartening to hear about the positive relations with the department. Anything else that we can do here in this committee and in the state to, obviously we're not in charge of tariff policy, we're not in charge of labor policy, and we're not in charge of immigration policy. What can be done to make sure that while the federal government is reevaluating some of its long-term policy goals, how we make sure that we're protecting our Michigan farmers and the agribusiness community?
I might lead off just to say, Representative, it's a good question, and I think overall, considering how state government can deliver certainty for farmers and businesses, and for us, for our organization, and for many of our members, both the Department of Agriculture and members of this committee and members of the legislature writ large have done that. We certainly, it doesn't mean that we always agree with everything that comes out of state government, but it does mean that we feel we have a listening ear with especially our MDARD regulators. Even when there are changes or new rules or things of that nature, MDARD has been very good about engaging with our industry on a proactive basis. Because the one thing you don't want in an uncertain time is surprises and new variables to manage as a business. And so I would ask that it doesn't mean we can't have new policy or policy change in state government, whether it's administrative or legislative. We just ask to be consulted early and often, and members of this committee have done that in the past with proposals, as has the Department of Agriculture, and we would just ask that continue.
I'm going to take liberty here as being the last question, or a couple of them there. There's been several bills floated, and we hope to continue to work on alternative fuels as another revenue source. Do you see that as a viable source and an important part of the industry, and how important is it for us to start moving on it before some other state takes our share of it?
I'm glad you asked. One priority area for our organization and our members is the growing opportunity with sustainable aviation fuel. This is bio-based fuel that's used and in demand by major air carriers to fuel planes, to fuel the nation's air fleet. Many other states have actually acted, Representative, Mr. Chairman, on support in different ways for sustainable aviation fuel production. This is a new market opportunity for corn growers. It's an opportunity for other businesses supporting corn growers. And it's one where we want to think through how could the state of Michigan not be left behind as major flag air carriers start to use that product more and more. And that's a discussion we're certainly open to going forward.
And as a follow-up to that, Representative Skaggs was walking around it there as well. What do we need to do here at this level there to make the departments more accessible and more ready to do business, as opposed to being excuses or standing in the way of getting things done for the industry?
Our industry, when we work together with our regulators, and I talked about a couple instances, especially when it comes to crop input use, where we have a strong, science-based, sound, trustworthy system that's a good industry-government partnership. We just want to be able to work together and get to yes when we face challenges. It's not that we won't face challenges and disagreements, but what we don't want, certainly in this uncertain economic time, is to come to a place where industry is not able to do business or continue with a project or a service. And we have seen some examples of that in recent years. I will say, I think it's very helpful to focus on what works, right? We've got great examples of that, and I would really zero in on MDARD and our regulators there as an example of how the regulatory interaction with industry can work. These are folks, the career staff over there are responsible, again, for inspecting, sometimes unannounced, inspecting our member companies and making sure that they're following applicable law and regulation. And that actually has a benefit because it protects our right to operate. But those folks are also working together with us from the perspective of compliance education, making sure that you know what the rules are, making sure there's consistent communication. And then when we get into, Mr. Chairman, opportunities to expand, for example, or to build new facilities or expand existing facilities, all we ask is that regulators and state departments work together with us, where if there's any friction, that we try to figure out some middle ground that keeps the economy growing. The only time that we really get concerned is when there's such a loggerheads or a disagreement or what have you, that investment's not able to continue. That's a real problem for our state. Luckily with MDARD, we've not seen that circumstance in recent years.
Thank you. Not seeing any questions. Thank you, Scott and Chuck, for taking the time to come here and explain the broader sense of just on the farms and how you guys represent that part of the industry that we don't really talk about.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Okay. With that, not seeing any other business, Representative Alexander moves to excuse all absent members. Seeing no other business, committee is adjourned.